Okay, now I will go in a little more depth of how the app should handle work-related events. So I imagine here we have some functionality in the app that handles the work, as a work management stuff, so work tasks and so forth. And first thing that happens is that when you install the app or reinstall it or something like that, it has to kind of get all the events to build up its own model, the state model. So what we're gonna do is it's gonna call the event mill and tell, give me all events, pull, means give me like gitish, and then it says what tags should it filter off. Okay, I want all the events that are tagged with work. Okay, and then we can imagine that the events that are in the system, in the event mill, is like these: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these orange one, they have the tag work, so they will get received in a batch, so you get one request back with all the events in, and you can start processing that as a stream. Okay, and what you basically want to do then with these events is you want to build up a state model. So what you're going to do is you take these events and then you have some functions or some event handlers for each type of events that create some objects or updates or delete some objects in some state model you have. So this is actually where the magic happens, is in this event projection. And I'll come back to that later in more detail. What is important about this event projection logic is that it's separated in the app, so it should be created in a portable way, so we can run it on the server too. That's something we can use later when we have to do snapshotting, because then we can let the server create snapshots for us. And also the state model, so the projection mechanism will create some objects in some model. It's also important that this is runs through some interfaces that's portable. So it should not be tied to a particular storage mechanism, for example, Realm or whatever you're using. Again, because we like to use this to create a serializable state model that we can handle on the server and download to that. Again, it's something to do with snapshotting that I will not talk about here, but I just mentioned it now. So that's why it's important to have these two things quite modularized and follow the solid principles here, right? Okay, so it's very easy actually. These functions are very, very simple. So every time it needs a project created event, there will be a project created event handler, and it says, okay, I will create, for example, a project object in my list of projects. Finished. Then there will be a document created events, and there will be an event handler handling that, and it will create some kind of document. It has a list of documents, for example, and it will create a document object. Inside this document object, there are some properties. I'll get back to that. So maybe create some composite object here and just throw into the state model. Okay. Work planned event, okay, it creates a work object and so forth. Work task added, it adds a work task to the work object. So here we just have plain objects, right? After we finish with that, we have the state model. Of course, the user face can use this to present stuff to the user, right? Like list of tasks or so forth. Then, sure, that you also talked about in Trello, there has to be some logic to handle that when the user starts to work with this data. Of course, there should be some kind of draft working storage stuff. But it's very important to not let this stuff it must not be mixed with this stuff here, but this is pure event stuff. This is pure state model derived from domain events. It has nothing to do with whatever happens on the app when he begins to edit stuff. It's really important to keep this separate because otherwise things will get very messy. So what happens when the guys, let's say we get a document, it could be a document like let's say it's, as the example we have created, is that he gets some kind of order. The customer has ordered something. He ordered a fiber connection. And the guy in the field, he has to talk to the customer and ask them, oh, is that correct? Or maybe it's not correct. Maybe they want to change something. Maybe they want one more extra set-top box or whatever. Maybe they want to have cable T also instead of IPTV or whatever. So he will make some modification to a document. And how you do that is basically up to you. But you know, I just have a list of draft documents, so I just make a copy of the document, or I register which property he has modified. Okay. Okay, that's number 2. So he edits something. At some point, okay, actually when he starts editing, again, this is something to do with business logic. When he starts doing a task, for example, begin to edit some of the documents that are part of a task, we like to know that he started doing that. So we create an event that's called work task started and push that to the event store. Okay? Because other systems that over here, it's very interesting to know when people start doing the work task out in the real life. So that's why we have to push these events back every time they start something and finish something and stuff. Okay, so that's what happens when he starts that. That's number 3 here. Number 4, when he's finished doing whatever he has to do, he has made some changes to this document. And then what happens then is that you have to of course push a what we call a document revise event. And in this document revise event, there will be a list of all the property he has modified. Okay. But before you do that, it's important to pull, like in Git, you have to pull events from the server first, because there might be some events dealing with the same object as this happening while he was doing it here. Okay, I'll get back to that. Then he puts the document to the server. Boom. And then what you can do now is you can update your, when the server has said, okay, thank you, I got this event and I have persisted it. You're free to do whatever you want now. The app can actually just apply that event to the projection mechanism, so it can persist into this mode. That's secure to do now, but only when the event mill has taken the event. Okay. What happens then later is when you pull again the work events, you will actually get back the event you have created yourself. Okay. And this event will go into the event handler. Here I just created it, this is the same as these. Here I just created a little more description. So there will be a document revised handler. And now the magic happens, because what we're going to do here is we're just going to loop through the properties of this document revised handler and look on the modified date. And if the modified date is greater than the existing properties we have here, we just update it. This is actually the logic to handle the conflicts. And it works really, really well, because I don't know, it's really difficult to explain, but for example, let's say this guy here, he's out, this is just an example, it's probably never going to happen in real life, but let's say this guy is out here and talking to the wife of the house, and she wants some internet, and they change, maybe he changed some attributes, for example, how many set-top boxes she wants, okay? Then, in the meantime, or while that's happening, maybe the husband of the house has called the utility, and they also changed something in that order. So maybe here, what we got here is actually we got a document revised event here that actually updates the same events the same document and he has just revised. But it doesn't matter, because you just follow this logic. The logic is in the event handler, and it says, okay, if it's modified so and so and so, it will get updated. So it just depends on who has updated it the last time. Okay, they will win. They always win. And then, and if you look at, we have been going through several exams also with switch status and so on. This simple rule here can actually make that work very well. So by doing this, we don't need to have a very advanced conflict detection logic here. And also the problem with conflict detection logic, especially if you're going to ask the user about, do you really want, someone else has changed something, should you save, or do you want to keep the others work? They will never keep the others work anyway. They'll just say no and save. So it doesn't matter. We let these handle the conflicts. So for each type of events, we will decide what should be how the conflict should be handled in the event handlers. By looking at the last updated date is a very simple way to do it, and it really works in 99% of the cases. Yeah. I don't know if it makes sense, but I hope so. Over here, can you see this diagram here? I have made a diagram of the state model. This is just an example. I mean, how you create the state from the events actually is up to you guys. But this is how I think of it. And actually most of this follow the SIM model. So what we have is we have some work. Work is like, you can think of it as a transaction. It's something has to happen. For example, let's say we want to connect a customer. He needs fiber. So we say the work is about connecting this customer. That involves several work tasks. Okay. It involves that someone has to go out and talk to the customer, then someone has to go out, it's another team, another company, has to go out and dig trends to put a conduit into the customer, then someone has to come and splice the fiber cables and patch and so on and so on. So there's many work tasks. And we like to group them into a work object because it kind of functions as a container for the work task. So that's why we need this guy. And doing all this work, there will be a lot of documents, typical, a lot, but some documents will be created and modified and so forth and added. And we put them here on the work, read into the work object, because several tasks might create and update documents. Josh, stop it. Okay, I know it's boring, but it's important. Okay, and yeah, then we have the activities for each work tasks. We already implemented that, some of it. And I imagine there's different types of activities here. And the document, actually this is a more important one. The document, I like to create a generic type of document. Basically just a list of properties. And each properties have a name and alias and type and so forth, and also, you know, when it's created, when it's modified, and of course the value, and maybe some other attributes, I don't know. And also, actually, I like to think of for example, a photo as a kind of a document, because then the photo also we might like to put in some properties like, you know, who taking the photo and maybe some comment or something like that. So actually, I like the idea that these are kind of specialization of the document class. So this is form document, it's just, you know, a normal document, you can edit it. And the redlining document, it's, you know, when you have drawn something on the map, specify something, put in something, remark and stuff like that. And maybe we will have more in the future. Yes. So this is when I think about the state model, I'm thinking about it should kind of create a state model like this in the app. But actually the cool thing about the state models, because we have events, we can decide to do it like this, and later maybe we decide to do it differently. It might also be that some module in the app might create a completely other state model, because maybe it doesn't care about the work tasks, so you just create a state model with only documents, for example. And let's say the app only you have to search for some assets and see some documents on these assets when we don't care about all these. So that's the idea that's the cool thing about event sourcing, that you can project them into whatever model you want, and you can project the same events into many models. You might also have a model that is very good for searching, for example, that you project into. You might have a model that are good for project management people, like a dashboard or something. They can see, okay, is everything running on schedule, and what is average time to do this kind of task, and so forth. So, yeah, I hope this shows that it can be actually done very simple. We don't need that. I mean, in terms of the events, it's actually very, very simple. You have these event handler that eats the events and convert them into some kind of state model. What's just important is that you kind of make this very portable and very have to use some interfaces here, so that we can, I mean, we're not tied to a specific storage mechanism here. Because on the server side, when we have to build up snapshots, what we like to do is of course to just maybe create the model in memory, serialize it, and the app can ask for that serialized model, put it into its database, and then it can begin to listen on the events from there. Okay, so that's why this one is important. But please don't mix it with whatever going on in the app when he types something, and all the state you want to save in the app while he do some task. That's up to you to put that in whatever model you want. And then you just interact with this word whenever you need to push an event or pull events. So it has to be very clean interface between here. Otherwise it would be difficult to maintain that. Okay. Hope it makes sense. Okay, that's it.